morning, friends. Today is a Saturday, and we were supposed to start working on stoning a fireplace today, but one of my propane drivers called in, and now we're stuck in the truck. So days in the propane truck aren't that exciting. I'll throw you guys on my head strap and bring you along for a couple, see if I can give you guys a little bit of information about how this stuff kind of works. But I wouldn't anticipate it to be a very long video, but I'll try and give you guys something useful. So when we get to our first stop, I'll throw you guys on my head and we'll go from there. All right, so this is actually the second stop of the day. The first one I had a little bit of trouble getting into. Go ahead and make sure we chock our wheels. And we've got an in-ground propane tank for our first delivery. Set our meter. This is gonna be a preset. There we go. All right, so we'll turn our PTO on. Alright, so let me make sure you guys can see this. Alright, so with an in-ground propane tank, you've got a couple obvious things right in front of you. You've got a service valve right here. This is what basically turns the gas on or off to your house. Right in the center, right here, you've got a gauge. This tells you how much is in here. This is useful for things like tank monitors and just, you know, keeping an eye on where the tank level is. You're not supposed to rely on these for filling. They're generally not accurate. With an in-ground tank, pretty much all new in-ground tanks get filled to 89%. If you have an older in-ground tank, they get filled to 92, sometimes 94%. But still, you don't use these to gauge when you fill them to. On the side here, you have what's called a spitter valve. And all this is it's a tube that dips all the way down into the tank. And in this tank, it's precisely at 89%. So that as we're filling and liquid comes up and hits that tube, that's how we know when to stop filling, and it's at the right level, despite what this may say. Because a lot of times with older tanks, you come across these and they're broke, or the float arm is bent and they're just not accurate at all. Right here, this is a vapor recovery. This is for things like pumping out the tank if you have to. This would be our relief valve. It has the cap on it, it's good. This is our first stage regulator, and something you might want to notice is we have a special pigtail on here, and it's a dielectric. And all that means is there's basically a plastic fitting in here that disconnects continuity from the tank to the house. And that's important because with in-ground tanks you have anode bags in the ground, and they're sacrificial, but they prevent the tank from rusting. So if you don't have a dielectric fitting here, you're protecting all the metallic pipe from here into the house, which you don't need to do. So as far as the tank is concerned, that's about it. The propane itself, when we pump into it, is clear. It looks just like water. And what ends up happening is it's odorless, so we put in the additives for the odor. We also put in methanol to take any remaining moisture out of the gas, even though generally it's pretty dry nowadays. So we deliver liquid into the tank, and the liquid propane itself boils at like -42, -43 degrees. And the top portion of your tank is your vapor, your gas that you use at your appliances. So that's generally how the whole system works. The propane boils as long as it's warm enough outside, it gets sent to your house for you to use. You need to be cognizant when you're installing the tanks of the BTU load in the house, because if you have a huge demand in the house, you wouldn't want to set a little 100-gallon tank and have them turn on everything. And we get the call frequently throughout the year, people install their own tanks or whatnot, and they'll call saying they're out of propane, and we get out there and they still have 30% in the tank. And really what's happened is they drew off the tank so fast that the boiling could not keep up with it, and you put the tank into what's called auto refrigeration, because as you're boiling that tank, the temperature of the liquid is going down, approaching that negative 42 degrees, and it gets to the point where it just stops boiling altogether. So just a little tidbit on how this one works. We'll get to the next stop and I'll see if I can find some more tidbits there for you. Alright, so I thought I'd go over something with this one. I've had nothing but 500-gallon tanks to fill so far, and now we got a series of 3 120-gallon tanks to fill. So on the last tank, it was an underground tank, and we noted what level you fill them to. Above ground tanks get filled to 80%. And one of the common questions I get when filling above ground tanks is customers will come out and look at their gauges and they'll all read a little bit different. And basically what happens is they're all tied together in a series, but they share a vapor space, not a liquid space. So it's not like the liquid is leveling out between the 3 tanks, it's just the vapor. And as they burn vapor throughout the year, vapor's gonna take the path of least resistance. So, you know, as it's drawing, it's gonna draw it primarily off this tank first, and then during, these will boil to kind of equalize the pressure. So it's not uncommon to see 5 to 10% off between 3 separate tanks as they're burning. So same thing again, we got a service valve here, we got a spitter on the side. It's got that dip tube that goes down in that lets us know when it's actually full. This right here is just a monitor of ours so we can track tank levels from the office. And you can see the liquid starting to spit out down here. And one thing we try and pay attention to when you have tanks with monitors on them, we usually try and leave them just a smidge under 80, just because if you get them a little too high, the gauges will peg and they'll stick. And then you're called out after hours because you didn't run your stick gauge reports and it's still reading 80%, and that's no fun. Close this up. Hope you guys can see this all right. I also try, while I'm filling, I use a combination of the gauge and the whistle, or the spitter. Mainly because I don't like sitting out here around all these other houses just spraying propane. Not that it's a safety issue, because we meet clearances to everything, but you don't want to get the calls from their neighbor saying that they're smelling gas. You know, so I usually just try and sit here and I feather it on and off and just keep track of it. Now this right here attached to the end of my nozzle, this is called a check lock, and we use those as a backup because under normal operation the fill valve itself is supposed to check, you know, so it doesn't let propane come back out when you disconnect. But occasionally, you know, different brands, different aged valves, they fail and you'll be filling and you'll disconnect and they don't shut. And oftentimes you can get that fixed if you take like a hammer or a wrench and just tap the side of it to get it to just check. But there has been times where it doesn't happen, and you can leave this backup check on and take your nozzle off and go with you. That way you're not just stuck here attached to the tank.
Alrighty friends, so we're done delivering for the day, and now we're back at my bulk plant. It's a 30,000 gallon tank. One of my other drivers is here right now. We're going to load up and we'll be done for the day. So I'll go over how we hook up and do this. Alright, so lights off, truck off. Need our gloves. Throw a wheel chock down. Not tell you guys what my code is to get into my plant. Alright, so I've already been here once today refilling my truck. I already emptied once. So this isn't going to take too much, but I like to have the trucks full going into the next day. Alright, so first I'm going to get my vapor out of the way. While I'm over here, I'm going to grab my grounding clamp. Ground everything. And then I'm going to take my liquid line just because it's heavier. Throw that up first. Tighten up our liquid. Alright, I'm going to open these two valves first. Those are just my blow off from before. Alright, so I got those two open. This whole plant is operated off nitrogen. The whole system's pressurized now, but the idea behind it being nitrogen is if there was ever a fire in here, this plastic line, which is like a plastic airline, would melt and dump all the nitrogen and our valves would all slam shut. So these are nitrogen operated valves right here. And you can see there's a little plunger in here, and if you dump nitrogen out of it, it would just spring back in and the valves would shut. Now when you hook up to a plant like this, normally I start with my vapor, and you want to open your valve slowly. You want to open your valve slowly because you have what's called excess flow valves on your truck, so that if you're in a car accident or something and you sheared off your lines right here, it tries to limit the flow coming out of the tank. But it also kind of affects you going into the truck, so if you open your valves too quickly, you'll slug them, where you basically slam them shut, and it can be a pain to get them to unslug. Alright, so we're open on our vapor and liquid. And we're going to come over here, start everything up. That's about all there is to it. All right, we're filled up to, well, 86%. And first thing we're gonna do is close our valves on the truck. I like to dump the nitrogen here. We'll shut these valves. We got to bleed them off. So the vapor here and our liquid line up here. That's just bleeding off what's in these sections of the piping right here between the shut-off valve and our loading arms. And so you can see here, I dumped that valve right here, and both of these slammed shut because those plungers are no longer sticking out. Take my ground off. Close our nitrogen. And that's it. We're done. All right, friends. Well, thanks for coming along with me today. That was just kind of a day in the life delivering propane. I'm not done yet. I got to go answer a call. A customer called and said they had oil on their floor. But I'm probably not going to take any video of that. But tomorrow, I think I am going to go to the fireplace job I was supposed to go to today and start working on finishing that. At least spend a couple hours on it, and I'll bring you guys along for that. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.